Hello and welcome to the Embrace the Mud podcast. Today we have a bit of a double feature where we're going to be covering days 4 and 5 of the Love Boost Challenge. We're going to be talking about the importance of boundaries in relationships, and I'm going to be sharing my 3-step process for setting a healthy boundary, and we're also going to be talking about the importance of creativity. So let's dive in. You are listening to the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, and life-giving relationships. Why focus on relationships? Because the quality of our intimate partnerships and close connections influences our health, happiness, and longevity more than anything else in our lives. Relationships matter a lot. So together, let's jump into the mud, aka our messy relationships, pull some weeds, plant some seeds, and create an enriching environment where strong relationships can take root. I am your grateful host, Dara Posner. I am a relational disaster working toward relational mastery. I am also a positive psychology coach, a relational mindset coach, a blogger, and now a podcaster. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships. If you are a fan of this podcast, please subscribe, follow, like, review, and share. Your engagement in this way is crucial to the success of the podcast, and I appreciate you taking just a few seconds to support my mission, which is to help people like you flourish in life and love. So yesterday was day 4 of the Love Boost Challenge, and hopefully you're following me over on Instagram. My handle is @EmbraceTheMud, where you were able to see the posts that I made and the challenges that I presented. There are always 2 options, right? And you can do one or both. If you're in a relationship, you're also welcome to do the challenge that's geared more toward the single people out there who really want to prepare themselves and ready themselves for creating a beautiful, life-giving relationship. Or you can just do the one that's meant for the folks who are in relationship. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just what feels right for you. So if you did catch the boundaries challenge yesterday, I hope that you were able to do it. And if you didn't, today's the day where you can do day 4 and day 5 if you want to. So we're going to start off by talking about day 4 boundaries, and then we'll move into today's challenge, which is all about creativity in relationships. So starting with boundaries, boundaries are just such an important aspect of relationship. Why they're important is because they protect the quality of your relationship and also each person's psychological and emotional well-being. And yet, so many of us, I think, have a lot of anxiety around boundaries. We don't really know what our boundaries are some of the time, or even if we do, we don't know or aren't comfortable really expressing boundaries in a way that really fosters a sense of support and safety and connection in the relationship. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to do that today, because it is so important, and I want to empower you to feel like I know exactly how to identify my boundaries, and I know how to express them in a way that feels really loving as opposed to maybe punishing or controlling. How do you do that? Okay, I'm going to share my 3-step process with you. First and foremost, I want you to really start paying attention to what just doesn't feel right to you when it comes to other people's behavior or ways of being, and then really just assess for yourself, what is it that I'm uncomfortable with here? And there's no right or wrong. Like, if you're uncomfortable with something, that matters. If there's something you don't want to deal with or tolerate, especially when it's, related to anything that you would consider a deal breaker in a relationship, it's really, really important to notice when deal breakers are happening. And so that's why at the start of a relationship or before you get into a relationship, it's important to know what are those things are an absolute no for you, right? That's a hard line. That's a boundary. But sometimes in relationships, there are things that, come up, aren't necessarily deal breakers, but they are things that we don't want to experience and we want to minimize as much as possible. So paying attention to what brings you discomfort, makes you feel unsafe, makes you feel disconnected, makes you lose trust, certainly, or feel disrespected in the relationship. Sometimes there are things that, make you feel disrespected that might not make another person feel disrespected. And that's why it's important to know ourselves in this way so that we can educate our partners and create healthy boundaries. So here's what that looks like. And by the way, if you're on a journey of just connecting with yourself, you also need to learn how to set boundaries with yourself. So this applies inside of relationships between you and another person and between you and you as well. And I'll try to give an example of each. So number one, what are you uncomfortable with? What are you not okay with? So let's start with your relationship with yourself. Negative self-talk for me is something I'm not comfortable with, right? I'm not okay with negative self-talk. I don't want to talk to myself in a disparaging or shaming way. And sometimes it does happen, right? And so I have to have a boundary with myself for when that happens. Step 2 is, what am I committed to? This is the why for why I'm setting the boundary. So step 1, what am I uncomfortable with? I'm uncomfortable with negative self-talk. I'm not okay with negative self-talk. Number 2, what am I committed to? I am committed to treating myself with love and compassion. And step 3, what am I going to do when this behavior that I'm not okay with happens? Well, when it comes to negative self-talk, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the narrative. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to notice that it's happening. And then I'm going to choose to change the narrative. So I'm not okay with negative self-talk because I'm committed to treating myself with love and compassion. And therefore, when negative self-talk happens, I'm going to catch it and I'm going to change the narrative. Now let's use an example for when you're in a relationship. I'm not okay with being yelled at, right? That's something that when that happens, I feel uncomfortable, I feel unsafe, I feel mistreated. I don't want to experience that, and I'm not okay with experiencing that, and therefore I'm going to create a boundary, right? And so step 1, I'm not okay with being yelled at. Step 2, what am I committed to? I'm committed to healthy, supportive, and respectful communication in all of my relationships. Step 3, what am I going to do if I'm in a situation where someone's yelling at me? I'm going to pause that conversation and return to it when both of us can come to the conversation with a calm and respectful demeanor and attitude. So again, I'm not okay with, I'm committed to, and here's what I'm going to do. And then the final step, if we're going to add a 4th step, is to follow through, to be committed to your own boundaries and to do what you say you're going to do. Right? And why this is important and why it really creates a sense of support and safety in the relationship is because, that centerpiece, right? The why am I doing this? When it's between you and another person, you want to focus on the relationship, right? That I'm protecting the usness, not just myself here. I'm committed to a relationship with a high level of respect, compassion, gentleness, etc. Right? And that means I'm going to live up to my own standard here, and I'm going to have a boundary so that, if you want to continue to be in conversation with me, you need to live up to the standard too. So that's what boundaries look like. I hope that was really helpful for you, and I hope that you'll make a list, right? Here are all the things I'm not okay with. What am I committed to? And what am I going to do when this happens? And then lovingly communicating that in your relationship and making sure to follow through on what you say you're going to do. Today is day 5 of the Love Boost Challenge, and it's all about creativity. Now, relationship itself, whether that's our relationship with ourselves or with another person, is a co-creation when it comes to, relating to another person and with ourselves. We have to be creative in the way in which we want to relate ourselves. Or maybe I shouldn't say we have to be, but we get to be. That's a choice we can make. The coolest thing to me about relationship is it's really imaginary. If you look at a photo, for example, of 2 people, you just see 2 individuals side by side. You don't see a relationship. It's not a tangible thing, and it doesn't come with a template. We get to create our relationships. We get to envision how we want our relationships to be, what we want them to feel like, how we want to take care of them. So it's actually a really interesting, fun, creative process if we choose to see it that way. So the challenge for you today is to really get creative, right? And to envision the masterpiece of a relationship that you want to create. If you're not yet in a relationship and that is something that you desire, I invite you to maybe create a vision board of a visual representation of some kind, if not a vision board of what you want your relationship to look and feel like. Or you can write down, the relationship that you dream of as though it's happening now, like in the present tense. If you're already in a relationship, you can really envision what you want your relationship to grow into, where you want it to go, and to share that with your partner and invite them to add in their own desires and their own dreams for what the relationship could be. And together create a shared vision and a purpose for your relationship. Dr. Stan Tatkin talks about 2 vital things that every relationship needs. One is a vision and purpose, and the other is structure in the relationship for how you're going to maintain and grow and take care of your bond. So those are the 2 challenges today: boundaries and creativity. If you've already done boundaries because you've been following me on Instagram, that's awesome. Then today's focus is on creativity. But if you didn't get to focus on boundaries yesterday, you can do that today. You can do both today if that's what you have the space and energy for. I think that that's great. If you are following along on Instagram and you are listening to this podcast, I would love to connect with you and just to hear how the challenge is going for you so far. You can email me, dara@mudcoaching.com, or drop a comment or message me over on Instagram. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode for you and another topic and another challenge for the Love Boost Challenge. Until then, please remember, you are wired for love and connection. You are capable of love and connection. You are worthy of love and connection. I'll see you soon.